All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use Photopea to take a picture. We're going to manipulate that picture, and we're going to add some of the things that we like, kind of as an About Me intro project. Now, we're going to be using some rearranging of size, as well as some of the lasso tools, and actually there's a lot of tools we'll get into. When you're watching this video, make sure to follow along and actually do the assignment if you need to along with me. Remember, you can always pause the video and then restart it. There's no reason to watch the entire video and then go back and try to do something. So again, watch the video in increments and it'll be a lot easier. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to File. We're going to go to Open, and we're going to take a picture. Now, when we click on Take a Picture, it's going to allow us to see our hair that's all messed up, but it's also going to allow us to see what the picture is going to be. So number one, we're going to have a design where things are kind of coming out of our head. So for me, I think it might be more fun if I was like, oh, like looking up. So again, we're going to try. And let's see how it looks. And if you hate it, we can totally get rid of it. I don't think it's the worst picture I've ever taken. They're definitely worse. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Now, what I am going to do with this picture, though, is I am going to use remove.bg to remove the background. Now, there is already a tutorial on using remove.bg, so I'm just going to pause here and come back. All right, so I have completed my background editing, and I thought I'd just show you something here. I can actually download it. So I was over here at remove.bg, and when I hit download, it shows the file right here, just like it does in your Chromebook. Now, your Chromebook, it shows up in the bottom right corner. But what I can do is actually grab that file, and I can drag and drop it, and I have the tab open for my my source images, and I'm going to drop it right there. So this is an easy way to use remove.bg using source images, which we went and collected in class, and add them to this file. And as you can see, all my source images are here showing up. Let's go back to Photopea. And we don't need this photo anymore. What we want to do is use the image we just created. And the image we just created, we're going to open it. And it's going to be named the same thing, whatever you saved it as. So it's remove 3, but it's also got the tag remove.bg preview.png. A PNG file means that it is clear, has that transparency to it. So again, you can always tell if it has been edited with remove.bg because it'll show up in the title, just like it says here. I'm going to click that and open it. And here we have our design. Now, a couple things we're going to do is we are first going to change our canvas size. To change our canvas size, what we're going to do is we're going to use the crop tool. Now, we can go into image and we can change the canvas size right here, but it's so easy just to use the crop tool with Photopea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the crop tool, which is right here. I'm just going to select the area that, now normally this is cropping. So if I was going to crop work, you know, just like a photograph, I'd do that and it's cropped. But the way this actually works better is if we want more area, we can just go up off of the page, and all of this extra area when I hit enter will now be part of my picture. So again, since things are going to be going up out of my head, I'm going to want a little more room above my head. Again, I just use the crop tool to do that. Now that I have that done, I'm going to use the navigator. Again, my navigator stores right here. If yours doesn't show up there, go to Window and Navigator. And there it is. Now I'm going to zoom in on my head and I am going to cut it off. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, we never work on the background. So we have the background layer. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to turn it off. Oops, turn it off. And then I'm going to call this, we'll call it face. Okay. And again, naming layers is important, but what really matters is that you know which layer is which. So name it whatever works for you. Now, to cut the head off, what I'm going to use is the Polygonal Lasso tool. I'm going to go straight across like this. Actually, I don't like how I started, so I'm going to use backspace until I can start again. I'm going to go straight across. that. And I'm going to take this selection while still in the polygonal lasso. I'm going to 2-finger click or right click with a mouse. And I'm going to choose free transform. Using free transform allows me to cut my head off. Now I am going to keep it on a hinge, kind of like this. I don't know how steep I want it. And again, we might need to zoom out here. And again, you saw I just popped the navigator on and off. Probably like this. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit enter and then Control D for deselect. So if you don't like how this lines up, which I don't, we can always reselect it and move it a little more. Again, I can move my head here. We can go back here where I still have it selected. Instead of even having to select it, I'm using the history bar, and we can go through there. So if I want the hair to maybe line up a little better, I can do that. Oh, edit, undo that. Or again, we can just go back in time here. Either works. And I'll leave it right there. I think that looks okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to start incorporating the things that I went and found that I think make me who I am. Now, to do this, I went and found source images, such as the PlayStation 4 controller here, and I simply copied the image address, and then I loaded it into remove.bg right here. When it was downloaded, I downloaded it to my source files, which are right here on my Google Drive. Using these files, I can put these, I'm not sure if I can drag and drop. Let's try it real quick. Doesn't look like it's going to let me. But using all of these files, I am going to open them using File, Open, and going through and selecting them and putting them into my work. I'm going to go ahead and pause while I open some of these up. All right, now that I've loaded a couple of these, you can see they're a mess. But the main thing I want to point out to you is before we can do anything with an image that we've opened and placed, again, I was using open and place so that it put it directly into my image here. The first thing I need to do is I need to rasterize the layer. And if you look over here at the layers palette with me, you can see that there's a tiny square in the bottom right corner of each of the new files that I opened. They will allow me to manipulate them in size, but they won't allow me to do much more. And that is because the layer has not been rasterized to use in the program. So all I have to do to make that work is 2-finger click over here on the layer, or right click with the mouse, and you can see rasterize pops up right here under my head. So if you rasterize it, each layer, you'll see when I do it, the square goes away. So we're going to do that to every single file. And you can turn them off and on while we work. So we'll start with the Shenron here. And the reason I wanted to start with this is I wanted to show you that just because, oops, I moved the wrong file. Just because I used remove.bg doesn't mean it really worked that well. So you can still see some of the blue there. Now for this, I'm going to try the magic wand now that we're in the program and just backspace some of that. Again, it works, not that much. It does work a little bit, but it's never going to be the end all thing. So we still might need to come in here and clean some of this up. Now we can also mess around with the tolerance and see what all gets selected. And again, you know, does it work? It kind of works. We could still do more with it. And I'm not going to do too much editing on it right now. I'm going to more do that later. And again, it is a separate layer, so we can do that later. For now, what I want to do is I'm going to shrink it down to fit into my head. So again, I use the rectangle select. I call it marquee select a lot because that's Photoshop. And I went down to free transform. I'm on the correct layer. And don't forget, we're going to name our layers. So that's going to be Shenron. Do our selection again, just in case. And again, we're able to scroll it down. We can flip it. We can angle it. We can tilt. We can even we can go in again and warp it if we want. All sorts of stuff. So I'm going to have Shenron right here coming out of my head. Now, to do this, I want to create some overlapping. And to create overlapping, pretty much what we need to do is I need Shenron to look more like this. Now we can do that through how I just did it, through layer order, or I could have deleted Shenron's body below my head. Both work. This one, I don't have to delete anything. So if I go back and I want Shenron to still be there, or I make him larger or something, it's a little safer. So we'll stick with that. All right, let's go ahead and look at the disc golf basket. Now, again, the disc golf basket came out pretty good using remove.bg. And just consider the fact that had I used the polygonal tool, I would have had a lot of work to do in between each of those chain links. So again, I can take that and I can do that however I want. I can have it overlapping or behind Shenron, whatever. Control D to deselect. And again, we don't want it in front of my face. We need to do overlapping. Overlapping is going to give us a sense of depth. So again, we've talked about foreground, middle ground, background. So the thing that is closest to you, like my hand, is in the foreground, and it looks like it overlaps my eyes right now. Okay, so my head is the middle ground, and the background is the wall. So again, it works the same way using our layers. I'm going to move this below my face, and there we go. Now, if I wanted my head to be behind it, I can do that really easily. What I'm going to do is I am going to duplicate that. And I would be able to also put this as a separate layer. So what I can do here is basically delete everything except the top of my head here. And it doesn't look like I did anything right now, but you got to remember, you are actually seeing two layers. So that's what my head is right now on that layer. So if I were to put this behind here, it should, there we go. It should come up looking like it. Now we need to do, let's see, how am I going to do that? We'll do that. I'm going to have to actually delete this one also. So I'm going to duplicate this before I do anything, just because I may not want to keep it. And then I am going to delete on this layer, this head. So now my head, like my actual, like the hinge part, is a separate layer. See how I can turn it off and on? So now it appears to overlap the disc golf basket. And I'm just going to continue to add these things as I go. So again, we can do the bike. And again, we're going to need to free transform it. We're going to rotate. And I'll put the bike like right here, coming out of my head like this. Now, again, if I get to a stage where I'm like, hey, I really want the bike to be behind my head, I can mess around with these layers again. Or if I want to make it easy, and I know I'm not going to need the seat, all I really have to do is on the bike layer is delete the seat post. And it'll appear to go behind my head as well. So now the disc golf basket's in front, the seat is behind. Or again, however you want it to be. Okay? I'm going to continually do this and add more to it in design. And I actually already did this in another video, but it didn't save. My computer shut down, and it's right here. And I am pretty happy with, there's me and me and me. But I'm pretty happy with how my original came out. So again, I've shows a little bit about what this is. These stripes, again, I thought that a little bit of color helped make that work. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then I'll leave it there so you guys can play around with it. But I'm not going to get to this stage again. This did take me a little bit of time. You can see all my layers here. So let's go back. I'm going to finish up with my practice. And then I will, then you guys can figure it out from there. So the last thing that I did was I used these tools here. So I used the Lasso Select. And all I did was I drew designs with it. And when you let go, it makes a selection. I made a new layer. I'm going to call that layer blue. And I tried to use colors that I thought were real pretty to me. Again, these could be totally different to you. And for this, I'm going to use the paint bucket. And you can see it looks like it didn't cover my head, but it did. It's just that it is behind that layer. And what I did with this is I also did a change to the opacity, so it looked like you could kind of see through it. So all I did was right here, it says blue, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to lower this down to about 80. And as you can see, it makes it clear. So let's bring it back up. Right about there. And again, I'm going to make another one. And then this is just to add a pop to it, some color. You could make this however you want, or whatever color. And again, I'm going to make another layer. I'll call this one violet, or let's call it red. We'll do red. Okay. And again, now that one appears to be over everything else because you can see where it's at. If I want it behind the blue, I simply drag it behind the blue. And again, I'm going to lower it to about 80. I don't want the colors to be that bright. You can kind of see how I got the designs and colors to be coming out of my head as shown in the other video. The last thing that I did is I did incorporate text. So right here, you can see that it says type tool. There's the T. And you're going to click and drag. And it works very similar to just like a Google Docs program. You can see this is the size. This is the type font. There's if it's centered, and here's the color. So first, I'm going to change the color so we can actually see it. Let's just make it yellow. And I'm going to pick a font that I think looks neat. Again, Photopea comes with a lot of neat fonts. You can even load fonts that, I mean, you can do a lot with the fonts, which we'll actually be doing later. I'm not going to teach you how to load fonts today. There is actually a tutorial on it, though. If you look in the YouTube channel, it's already posted from last semester. And I know exactly which one I want. If I can find it. There it is. I love this one. Okay. And I'm going to write Mr. Hedges. Now, again, it looks like it is behind because it's behind that. So let's put it to the front. And again, we can do things like change the size, all that right here. Now, you'll notice it's really hard to see. I'm going to show you a really simple trick to do a drop shadow. I'm simply going to drag my text layer, the text layer, and I'm going to duplicate it. Now I actually have two yellow layers, but what I'm going to do is click the type tool, select it again, and I'm going to change the color to something that's different. So I'm going to use, sure, purple. Now you can see the yellow and the purple, and if I offset it slightly, it creates like a drop shadow, and really what it does is it enhances the image. So by itself, you know, it kind of blends in. You give a drop shadow and it looks really good together. You can also, now if you want to manipulate text, you also must rasterize the layer, okay? But for now, we don't need to. So I hope this helps and you can kind of see how I got from where I'm working here to my original as I had it here, because this one I think came out a lot better. But again, I'm not going to go through the entire thing right now. We will cover this in class, but hopefully this does help you if you need that assistance. And that's it. Good luck working on using remove.bg, text layers, cropping, a whole lot of stuff. So again, I know that was a lot of information, so pause it where you needed to, go back if you need it, and hopefully this helped out.